Hey, welcome to another episode. My name is Brian Roisentul. I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dylan Jones. He's the CMO of Podium Nutrition. Hey, Dylan, thanks for being here on the show.
Hey, I appreciate being on, Brian. Thanks for having me. Super excited.
My pleasure. So please tell the audience more about you and Podium Nutrition.
Yeah. So we'll start with Podium. Podium Nutrition has been around for, let's call it 3 years now. We have had really solid and measurable growth the last 3 years across omni-channel sales. But we're a supplement company that's born and bred within the CrossFit industry and have now branched out into more of a Gen Pop consumer base with our launch at Target. But we really do a good and intentional job, I think, of serving our core base as well as that general population. So really excited to get into the details of it. But as far as me, as you mentioned, I'm the CMO. I've been the CMO here for just about 2 years. We're coming up on 2 years now. And when I joined, I really wanted to emphasize with current leadership and founders that what I saw on Podium was not just a specialty supplement brand, but actually truly, I think, the next Quest. It has the potential from a brand look and feel to the efficacy of the product and who we have as athletes to really, I think, be the next household staple supplement product. And those last 2 years, because of that conversation, have been a blast. So I'm really excited to talk more about it.
Yeah. I know people can't tell because they cannot see any muscles here, but I used to practice CrossFit for a long time, probably 6 years or so. Then I had kids, and then my routine probably went to prep. Now I do more like triathlons and all kind of stuff. It's fun too, but I honestly miss CrossFit. It's a really good practice.
It is. So I also have 3 kids, and my whole family does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then my wife and I train CrossFit. And prior to joining Podium, I actually didn't do CrossFit at all. I did, I think, CrossFit methodology, right? Hits and AMRAPs and different kind of movements and Olympic lifting prior to that and stuff. But I I didn't really even know that CrossFit was its own entity until joining Podium. I had no idea that they had a corporate HQ, and I didn't know what the CrossFit Games were. I just thought it was kind of like a funny workout style that I'd see memes about sometimes. And so since joining Podium, it was actually really cool because I got exposed to it. And I think that CrossFit, especially for parents, is or just busy working people, which is most of us now. CrossFit, I think, is the most efficient caloric output to time in any workout methodology that exists. I mean, it truly is like the most bang for your buck time wise to body results and how it makes you feel and look. It's a pretty phenomenal methodology. I love it.
I agree. I agree. So you said that you joined the company in its early stages, right? I think it was around the eighth month of life. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just about the 8 month. Yeah. Hmm. Yep.
Do you remember the main goals and challenges you had back then as a CMO?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, when you join a startup at that stage, you're CMO of what? Your team is one person, maybe two people, right? So you're not the title's there, but you really are you're really more of a founder and an architect at that stage than anything. If you're truly trying to win with that brand as an early stage employee, you're doing far more than just marketing operations. The initial challenges were just simply cash flow. I mean, that's really the make it or break it for most businesses, especially in CPG, is can you truly juggle terms in a way that promotes growth and gets everybody paid for the next pay period, right? Now, luckily for us, we weren't scrubs. Everyone on the team, I was at Mary Ruth Organics prior to that as the VP of Digital. So I knew how to operate at large scale. And then before that, I owned my own marketing agency and a couple other small businesses. So I understood how to operate a P&L in a way that's, it's a big project, but you take it in bite-sized chunks. Our founder, Paul Haberland, also started Ghost, the supplement company Ghost. And prior to that was with C4 back when it was Woodbolt and NutriBolt and all that. So we had a good angle, I think, like operationally, we really understood how to get it going there, but it's still challenging, right? So those early days are really just about how fast can we fill up the coffers again and get the next PO out and back in. And we really relied on our relationship with GNC. So when we first launched, unique with Podium was we had good relationships and we leveraged them. So we were nationwide and exclusive with GNC. And that really is what bankrolled us and allowed us to maximize the leverage that we had with our line of credit. And so we did that song and dance, and GNC was a great partner for that. That first year was really a prove it moment for us, I think, to really show that we could drive velocities that early. And I think a big testament to that is that we niched down super hard. When we picked CrossFit, we needed to make sure that we told the right story. And it was a truthful story that when we partnered with Matt Fraser, 5-time champ, we wanted to build a brand that was seen as built for and by CrossFitters, so that CrossFitters knew they were being directly served. It was different than other brands who already existed coming in and saying, hey, CrossFitters also buy our stuff. This was for CrossFitters, built by CrossFitters, Buttery Bros, Matt, etc. So that first year was really about solidifying that CrossFit story and really doing the song and dance with retail. And then as you enter year two, you have to start prepping year 2 and year 3 content, year 2 and year 3 branding and storytelling. You have to be ahead of that, right? And so that year 2 vision was like, okay, we've sold CrossFit. We know what CrossFit thinks about us. They know how we feel about them. This is a good partnership. Our reorder rates are high. D2C is humming. Amazon's doing well. Retail's doing well, but we need to take it to the next level. And as you know, as a CrossFitter, it's a small niche, right? It's an amazing group of people, but you can never grow your top line revenue past, let's say 20% of an audience's total pie. It'd be pretty impressive to have 100% ownership over CrossFit. We don't. There's other players in the mix. So you have to diversify authentically, and that's been the next step over the last couple of years is how do we diversify authentically and still maintain this CrossFit heritage?
Got it. So I love everything you said because you tapped into many, many important points that I will highlight in a sec. And I wanted to ask you about them individually. So I love the fact that you already mentioned many of them. One is cash flow. Then you mentioned niching down, and then partnering up with, let's say, an influencer in the space, or someone with certain influence in the space, such as you said, 5 times champion, right?
Yeah, Matt Fraser, yeah.
Yeah, so that's amazing, and those are important things. First of all, cash flow. What does it look like for a supplement brand? Do you expect to break even in the first order? Do you have you designed a strategy to do that in 2 to 3 orders? What does it look like?
Yeah. So it's twofold. I think it's kind of like running a race where you have your overall time and then you have your split times every lap, right? And so when you're looking at a P&L for the brand as a whole, you need to make sure that you're not too married to measuring just the split and you're getting stuck in just a single lap time, but you're looking at the big picture, especially when you're omni-channel at start. So for us, cash flow management was basically I broke it up into channels and did a classic kind of contribution dollar and versus contribution as a margin. And making decisions financially is really the best way for any brand to stay afloat, especially supplements. Like the supplement industry is incredibly competitive. Your cost per acquisition and cost per sale is going to be high. But also, with that risk, there's also the supplement industry is a massive industry with a ton of top line potential. So if you're going to play the game for the big reward, the risk is going to be larger too. So, if we were selling handmade toaster ovens, maybe the cash flow is easier to manage, but your market size is this big, right? So when you're playing in the supplement space, there's a give and take. I aligned heavily with the founder's position on this, especially given my time at Mary Ruth's, that if you wanted to have a high valuation in the future, so backing up, I needed to make sure that I was on the same page as the founder of like, what's your goal? Are you trying to exit in 5 years, 10 years? Is this generational? So align with founder first. And then after that, set your cash flow by channel to make sure that you're hitting those goals. So for us, that meant intentionally limiting Amazon sales, prioritizing retail to make GNC happy because those POs were much larger than us. And D2C should both be feeling the spillover from retail as well as pushing the needle for brand. So if you're looking at contribution dollar versus margin, you know, Shopify tends to take the beating on most P&Ls, I believe, because it is the most attributable platform. Every dollar that you spend, you can somehow bring back into Shopify, and it has so much data, right? E-commerce has so much data that a lot of times CFOs or any kind of financial leader will look at that as your North Star. The problem is that it overinflates the performance of other channels. So I was really intentional with looking at what are we spending per campaign, per SKU, per product, per collection, whatever it is, allocating that spend across the channels in a way that was weighted and fair. So, you know, we have an athlete roster. Let's say our athlete roster cost each month is, for the sake of numbers in this, $10,000 a month. I'm not going to apply that $10,000 to every customer acquired through Shopify and put that into a working CAC. That's just not fair because they're also influencing Amazon purchases and retail. And so you kind of have to weight these things. And at first, no one will admit this, but at first you're guessing. You're looking at your P&L and you're going, I think based on this, what I'm seeing right now, my gut is telling me that this is how we should weight these things. Let's operate this way and see if it's true. So again, risk tolerance needs to be high in this industry. But after a while, you start to get your feet under you and you realize, oh, okay, we're managing this well, or we need to adjust. So for us personally, we hindered sales on Amazon, prioritized GNC. We had good terms worked out with them and good terms with our supplier. That's just a personal skill. Make sure someone on your team is good at negotiation and good at sales. Relationships are everything in any industry. So once we had the terms established, GNC kind of acted as like our big windfall that would then let us activate a big digital campaign. And then once we'd run out of money there, the next GNC would pick up. And so we kind of played that like Tarzan swinging from vine to vine. And then after a while, you realize, okay, we can breathe a little bit more. We've upped our baseline. So profitability wise, there's times when you choose to be profitable and there's times when you choose not to be. We never wanted more than 5% EBITDA at the end of the year. We really wanted to make sure every dollar was being efficiently put back into the growth of the company. That's starting to shift now as we enter this, you know, into year 4 and heading towards year 5. We want to make sure that we're setting intentional EBITDA targets and being able to build a staff and keeping OpEx under control, running a lean team of killers, you know, A players, and growing omnichannel with that same strategy just at a larger scale. And so for now, we're heading towards true profitability on total dollars spent in general, which is a very, very good thing.
Yeah. It's funny because you are the CMO, but you're also talking about, you know, financials and P&Ls, and it's crazy how these words are not separate anymore. I'm not sure they were ever separated, but now brands are trying or starting to understand that these things must work together to make a solid company, to build a solid company, right? Otherwise,
They must.
the marketing team only talking about CPAs, ROAS, or whatever is not probably a good marketing team anymore. They need to be aligned with the other goals.
Yes, 100%. And I would say the same for COOs and CFOs. There needs to be kind of a shared understanding of what it takes to run a brand. So your CFO should have an understanding of CPAs, like, you know, so you have cost per acquisition versus ROAS versus MER versus, and making sure that everyone's aligned on knowing what those are and what they mean and how you're defining them, because there's a lot of ways to pull data incorrectly from Shopify. Your COO needs to understand that you can't magically give a number on velocity. I think a lot of times operations department like, hey, marketing, how many of these units do you think you can sell in 3 weeks? It's like, well, that depends. We need to know how much money we have, because based on that, I can tell you a projection because it's costing this much to move this SKU outside of organic. Or so it's this big circular conversation. Eventually, someone needs to make the decision. And ideally, all of your A players on leadership know enough about each other's jobs to come to the table with a cohesive plan.
That's something really important, and I'm happy you brought it up. I cannot tell you, you know, I run an agency, and I cannot tell you how many times the clients like bring the CFO, and the CFO starts making decisions on the marketing side based on whatever information they think they see that it's and consider accurate, right? They look at like, I'm not kidding and not making it up. Like, they can go to the events manager on Facebook. And for everyone knowledgeable on Facebook ads, the events manager says nothing about performance because it's the raw events and duplicated even
Yep.
events. So, oh,
Yep.
this is not fine. And they make decisions based on things like that. So I think that it's really, really important for like that everyone is educated on everything they are seeing. In fact, I used to run my own startup with investors and everything like that. Like back in probably I was younger. It was 2011, and I
Yeah.
remember as if it was yesterday, lawyers saying in the beginning, Brian, you shouldn't be a lawyer, an accountant, and everything else, but you should know the ABC of everything,
100%.
every of those areas. Yes, and it's true, and
Yep.
it's what you just said.
I think it's hard because it's a lot of organizations won't admit this, but because it's their biggest chink in their armor. But finding talent who's willing to work outside of what they're directly paid for or titled as is what makes or breaks most good businesses. And that goes all the way up to top leadership. I mean, if we were to actually see a day in the life of Bezos the last 10 years with Amazon, that dude's having conversations with developers. He's having conversations with finance. He's having conversation with overseas tax attorneys. He's having conversations with logistics experts. Now he's getting into the space race with Elon. Most of a good leader's job, and it's funny you asked me before this started what my favorite book is. It's like I don't have one because I don't read a lot outside of work, but for work I read all the time because I think the best leaders in the world are always learning. They're always learning, always learning. They don't micromanage, but they micro understand so that they can micro support. You know what I mean? So they're not telling you how to do your job unless they need to, but at least they're aware of what you're doing. So if I see someone an operations warehouse manager inside of ShipStation, and they're rating things through let's say it's less than a pound and they're running it through UPS. Now, maybe some marketers listening to this don't know how bad of a decision that is, but I know for a fact that if you're running something outside of USPS and it's less than a pound, you're leaving money on the table for no reason. Just put it in a first class envelope and let it go. So there's little quirks like that I think the best leaders start to realize. I just need to learn as much as I can. That's the main job.
I agree. Then something else you mentioned is partnering up with influencers, to call them in a way, in this space.
Mhm.
In your case, how do you think that helped? And I mean, why did you decide to go for it? And do you think, or would you dare to say that many brands out there should go that route as well? Like I see a lot of let me give you some context. Like I see a lot of people posting on LinkedIn and people I interview as well saying things about the creator-led brands. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you guys define yourself as such, but you are a brand that is that partner up with creators and has ambassadors, as far as I know. So
Yeah. So I wasn't part of the initial formation of the cap table. I came on after that. So kudos to Paul for recognizing a need in a space and getting the right people. Paul's our founder. He did an excellent job with that, of getting everybody, the talent in who needed to be in on that founding cap table. That being said, when I joined, I made it crystal clear to him that I think the biggest weakness of celebrity co-founded brands or influencer-led brands is that that's their only strength usually. And if that person happens to get canceled or gets sick and can't simply make deliverables anymore, becomes uninterested, and you don't have a strong partnership agreement, or they just aren't business savvy, they don't actually care. There's so many ailments they're human, they're people, right? And so you're putting all this stock into a person. I think that's crazy. And I think we get blinded by how much attention influencers garner. And attention is the name of the game. Attention is modern oil. We all recognize that. Whoever owns attention owns every dollar. But I think we get blinded by that. We only want the attention. We don't realize that we would never make a hire like that. Imagine if in your business, you're like, all we need is one really good chief operating officer, and that's all we need. And everything will go through them. Every decision, people would look, your board would look at you like you're on drugs, because that's a crazy decision to make. You need to diversify a little bit. You need to protect yourself. You need to grow a real org. And so I look at brands the same way. It's like Prime, they killed it. They got the bag. They won. They did great. They're still winning. Yeah, velocity's slowing down, and people are saying, they're done. They're going to be done forever. But maybe I don't think so. But it is something to note that that's a one-off case of wins. There's plenty of other examples of high-profile celebrities executing poorly and not doing well. And I've been a part of some of those, like, I can't name names, but I've been a part of some of the upstarts of those to help develop their e-commerce as just a contractor on the side or consulting with them. And when I meet the operating team, nepotism is still running wild, like anything built by humans. And so, you have this famous rapper who has an amazing following, and someone convinced him to launch a t-shirt brand. And I'm brought in as a consultant, and I'm looking around at who's on the Zoom call. Half the time, those people have never run their own brands. They're just friends with the guy. Their uncle knows the label guy, and they're all in there. They're going to start spending money, and they're going to go out of business in 2 years. And that happens all the time. So I will say this to answer it short and sweet. Influencer-led brands can be amazing if they're led by an excellent operational leader who's not just going to count on them for every sale. So they're very, very good for the initial ramp up. And then after a while, they actually start to lose their value. So there's a solution there. If you're partnering with an influencer, make sure that they have a career path where they want more. They're not settling. That's the first thing. The second thing is, do you jive with them personality wise? And so Matt Fraser for us was an excellent call. He's a great guy. He's a solid competitor, and that competitiveness translates into business as well. He's always moving. He's on to the next thing. He wants to grow. And as a business, that helps us a ton. The more exposure he has, the more exposure we have, but we are very intentional on not relying on him or the Buttery Bros. We use them strategically, but I, from the very beginning, was super intentional about just limiting the amount of times we use them, because I cannot let Podium become the Matt Fraser brand. That's only going to hurt him and hurt us over time. We have to become our own entity that he is involved with. An example of a recently launched brand who I think is going to do very well with this is Wyn, W-Y-N, by Serena Williams. It's a beauty brand. And I believe they have I can't remember if it was with Ulta or Sephora, but they have had an amazing launch so far. She's in the creative initially to get everyone rah and excited, but I know I can just tell on the quality of branding right now that it's going to do very well. They've picked an athletic kind of niche. They have really good ingredients, and she's going to be able to step back and tell a leadership story, a business story that's a lot more interesting than just I'm a tennis goat. You know what I mean? I'm the best of all time. That story gets old after a while. So I think they're on the right track to doing it very well, and they understand, like, this is a business. This can't just be the Serena Williams show. So we're doing the same thing on our end.
Amazing, really well explained. So I appreciate that. You mentioned that the other thing mentioned was niching down. And I was going to ask you before you said that, how you stand out as a brand in such a competitive industry in this case. I mean, what industry is in competitive? If it's not competitive, probably it's not that interesting anyway. So in this case,
Yeah.
the supplement space is crazy competitive, as you said. So how do you stand out? Is it only by niching down? Is it by partnering up with someone, with an influencer, as you just covered, or what other ways have you found?
Yeah, so niching down, I think, is really important for measuring initial return and product market fit. There are, as you're founding a business, there are some windows that you should consider to be bailout windows. If we don't hit this goal, maybe the brand is just not good. Maybe the product's not good, whatever it is, but set some KPIs for death too. Don't just try to hold on to the very end and go into more debt and try to, if it's a sinking ship, it's a sinking ship. So when you're niching down, that's part of that strategy is this a wind up brand or is it a wind down, and we got to try again with another thing. So strategically, that's one of the reasons to pick a niche. I think the other one is you want to pick a niche that you're willing to grow up out of. So for instance, there's other people that use supplements, like gamers. That's a great niche, right? However, the parent branch of gaming, as kind of like a nootropic, like mental, like state kind of flow, that wasn't where we wanted to take the brand. So it wouldn't have made sense for us to niche down in gaming, even though it's a lucrative niche. So we wanted to make sure that the brand vision aligned with the initial niche and what the maturity of that niche looked like. So with CrossFit, it's Olympic lifting, Olympics, traditional sport, large gen pop fitness. That kind of snow cone picture, if you will, is what guides each step for us marketing wise and product development wise. So niche is super important in the beginning because you get direct return from it, you get popularity, and you get cult following. And then every level you get out of that niche, you need to double down on protecting what you just grew out of so no one fills your spot and tells a story of, oh, they got too cool for you. Like, we're actually the authentic ones. So you have to always play defense. And then in the next step, you have to prove that you're willing to support that niche too. It's always a story. And I think the word that gets thrown around a lot and is misunderstood is either brand or authenticity, right? And so the funny thing about authenticity is that you can change what your brand is authentic for at any time. The problem is that it takes time to prove it. And so brands that are seen as inauthentic, it's not the problem like if I'm Burger King and I started selling tacos. The problem isn't that I started selling tacos. The problem is that I probably told a poor story and rolled it out too early or too suddenly. Or I did it, got cold feet and got scared and then ran away. And then it's a big flop and it's this big stinking thing on my resume forever. But if you started slowly rolling out as jokes and little subtle hints here and there, and then a separate chain and made a joke commercial, and then 2 years later, it's the norm, it's propaganda, you've baked it into people's understanding. Now all of a sudden you can release a breakfast taco. It's just a breakfast taco, it's just on the breakfast menu, right? And then there's a lunch one. And now it's a staple thing. And you're competing with Jack in the Box at a burger chain with tacos. So there's a way that you can authentically grow out of a niche, and there's ways that you can just really botch it. And so every time we take a step forward, I freak out. And it's not that I'm freaking out because I'm out of control. I'm freaking out to make sure that the team understands how serious it is that we're walking forward. Are we ready to tell these stories? Do we understand what this community needs? Do we understand the impact that it could bring on the community that we've already built and protected so well? So the freak out is intentional, but it's needed. So niche, yes, but plan to grow out of niche for sure.
Yeah, not only as you define it, the freak out is intentional, but the niching down or out or up is
Yeah.
intentional too. You have a plan. Of course,
Yes.
plans change, but you do
Always.
have one. It's not that you said, "Hey, we're going to do CrossFit forever," and then all of a sudden you said, "Hey, we should tap into another one," and you don't know which one, and then you go all in and forget about the previous one. As you said, everything should be planned, and you should play defense, quoting you,
Yep.
forever to avoid the competition to eat your market share, right?
Even a year ago, our email marketing team, I was telling them to start saying cross-functionally fitness or cross-functionally fit, or are you using cross-functional and fit in the same sentence, but not just saying CrossFit anymore. That started a year ago in little bits of emails, just here or there, nothing in bold, just a word slip here or there. And you start baking that in, and then fast forward to today, and we've released our Podium Fit app, which is a free fitness app, evergreen 30-day body weight only app that people are excited about, who we've used a name who's, his name's Kiefer. He's a very well-known coach in the industry. So he's kind of like one of the actual locals, OG coaches, and he's in the industry and recognizes that every move we've made is intentional so that people know, hey, we're still about CrossFit, but also fitness is way fun for everybody. We want to bring more people into this. And so to the CrossFitter, it's seen as like, wow, they've taken their time. They're not just rushing out. They didn't just use me for my money to grow. And they're bringing in more normal mainstream people and introducing them to what AMRAPs and EMOMs are. And sure, it's not an affiliate CrossFit gym, but at least we're getting people moving and feeling good, right? And so I think when you've won is when people defend you without even having to ask, right? It's you've built that cult following of whatever you do is good, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that so far.
What's that app? What's that app about, and why did you decide to create it?
Yeah, so it's called Podium Fit. It's part of our loyalty program. We have only done one social post about it, also intentional. We're rolling it out really slow. So prior to this, I owned a marketing agency that I turned into a software development agency because, as you know, marketing it's a churn game. You're playing this contract thing. And after a while, you're like, there's no exit here. What am I going to do? And so I started building software. And with that software team, I had great relationships with devs here in the States that I hired directly in our home city in San Diego at the time. I've kept those relationships. And now at Podium, I was like, you know what? I think I should hire those devs again. And we should build something into loyalty that we can offer as a premium feeling, free and accessible platform, so that to grow, we don't have to discount our products, but can rather give more value on something that doesn't hurt my bottom line, right? And so instead of going, hey, every new customer gets 15% off, and all of our returning customers are like, what about me? And now you're playing the race to the bottom game and there's no more margin for anyone and we go out of business. Instead, it's what if we invest in customer experience? We build a holistic ecosystem with a receipt scanner for retail that's now live. So if you shop at Target or Vitamin Shop or GNC or anywhere else we are, you can scan your receipt and your points are automatically rewarded to your account, double for some retailers. If you want subscriptions, you can only do that through loyalty. We started seeing all this traction with the loyalty program. And so we baked in this fitness app for free, and it's just 30 days. And the beauty of it is that it's no equipment required. It's body weight only, completely scalable. And as you know, from someone who's done CrossFit, if you do CrossFit for 5 years, for some reason, CrossFit doesn't get easier. You just get more fit and the reps get increased. Like, it never actually gets easier, right? And so the beauty of fitness is that it's always challenging. So instead of charging for a workout track, we're like, hey, what if we made a really high quality, repeatable, scalable workout program that's good for Gen Pop and the avid fitness enthusiast or CrossFitter, and made it completely free with a free account. And so that's what we're rolling out now. And we actually just launched our first top of funnel ad for it. And we've gotten, I think we're up to 150 daily users now, which is great.
Wow, congrats. One thing is, or two things you said stood out to me at least, and I wanted to call them out. One is, the fact that I met, I think it was one of the first 10 or 20 episodes we recorded, like back in 2021. Do you know the brand Echelon Fitness?
Echelon, Echelon.
Yeah.
I believe so.
They sell I don't know if they sell more product categories now, but they used to sell bike,
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And long story short, they ended up partnering up with Pitbull, Shakira, and many other like high profile artists, and developed like a program. It was a live and I think recorded program for people to train in their homes. And then of course they saw the training sessions, and they wanted to buy their stuff, not only the bikes but also the accessories. And they said that back then, at least, they produced more content than Netflix. They have 10 studios all over the world, content every single day. I don't know how many hours a day, and they became a content a content machine. Producing a lot of sessions, and they still sell bikes, and that's a huge part of a company. But they did that through like over time, creating this online sessions. So I find something similar here at a lower scale, of course, which is how else can I create loyal customers that love my brand and stick around for longer. I don't know if that was the goal initially, but that's probably what loyalty platforms are about, right? So,
Definitely.
great.
Yeah. So content. So I've coined it internally here as like Podium has to become an entertainment first company, entertainment led as far as marketing goes. I think we get lost sometimes in over analyzing consumers and dehumanizing them. For instance, Target rolls out and we're like, oh, we need to make sure we have a lot of pink, and maybe we should have a blonde girl in here. And maybe it's like you all of a sudden you become a different brand and you're like, maybe, but no, like those people also watch Saturday Night Live. They also like Tina Fey rom-com movies. Like let's look at the demographic differently and not just kind of like narrow them into one box, but instead think about intrinsically what we as humans like to do. We like to laugh. We like to argue. we, whether we admit it or not, like to feel emotions like anger or crying. Even in the moment, we don't like that, but at least it lets you know you're alive, right? And so I like riffing off emotions. Prior to this, I see the guitars. I was a musician. I was a sound tracking musician. That was like the angle of my career. And some stuff happened and ended up getting into audio visual. And then from there, found myself in marketing. But I think I rely on the musicianship aspect. So what Echelon did is brilliant, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here too. Is lead with entertainment and scale it, right? I can't just roll out a production crew tomorrow and start producing 100 episodes a year, but I can start taking some bite-sized chunks and going, all right, how do we prove that this is a profitable arm of business for us? How do we entertain people so radically that they realize, or at least feel like, Podium doesn't just want my money, they actually want me. That, see, like, customers, I think if you really look at a good customer, a loyal customer of the brand, they like the brand because they also feel respected and wanted by it. People want to belong, right? It becomes almost like serious brand enthusiasts. It almost looks like a church membership to them. I mean, they will die for that brand. I'm personally a horrible consumer. There's maybe one or two brands that I have a very strong passion about. And other than that, I'm just kind of like a ghost consumer, and I'll buy whatever thing floats in front of me if I need it, right? I think it might be a symptom of being in the industry. But with Podium, the goal is to create a hub and spoke model where the hub is loyalty and freemium access. So you can get as much as we can possibly squeeze into a free program. And if you want to elevate your experience with pay to play perks or purchasing and rewarding yourself with loyalty points and teaming up with our retailers, great, that's awesome. But if not, I know that for every person I can entertain who maybe won't be a consumer, they'll talk about us 5, 6, 7 times to people who will be consumers. And that has to be the goal of a little brand. You have to still think like Coke or Pepsi in this regard of, if you want to play in the big leagues, you have to spend like the big leagues, which means not every dollar is traceable to $2 return. Sometimes you just spend to entertain and it will eventually snowball. So set some slush fund aside and really start to experiment once your P&L is ready for that.
You tried something else on that front, on the loyalty or retention front, that was successful, or probably the opposite? It didn't work as expected.
Yeah. Luckily for Podium, I made a lot of mistakes prior to Podium. So, I mean, at Mary Ruth's, one of the last things that I did was I gave away a Tesla.
Really?
That didn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, at the time I was spending about a Tesla and a half a day in marketing. So I was like, you know what? What if we just bought someone a Tesla and did a whole campaign around it? Um, it, it was just stale. It didn't feel good. It was poorly executed. Some people liked it. Some people hated it. It was just a thing that was like, all right, well, that was a flop. So I made some mistakes prior to this. I think one of the biggest things with any marketing initiative is you should never, even if it looks like a home run and feels like a home run, you shouldn't put your bet on that it will be a home run. You still have to be conservative with your risk to a degree. So as we invest in subscriptions, loyalty, entertainment, I'm still investing an amount of money that I'm okay with losing should it flop. I really am. So that's like the biggest lesson I think I've learned in the professional career is like, there are times to risk, but for the most part, the things that move the needle, they're always unpredictable. It's always that one TikTok person who all of a sudden hit a good stride in the algorithm and your product went viral on Amazon the next day. You didn't control that. You didn't make that happen. But if you're doing the right stuff, when that TikTok video does go viral and you're granted that amazing stride in the algorithm for a few weeks and everything sells out, did you have the infrastructure in place for a loyalty program to collect all that data? Did you have the subscription in place? Because if you didn't, then you won't be able to replicate it in the future or maximize the return on that. But if you did, all of those base hits that weren't home runs, all of a sudden look like home runs. Because if I have this amazing loyalty program, but it feels like it's just only moving the needle a little bit, once we do go viral, that infrastructure is just lifted. And now we're operating up here as a baseline. So I think like just understanding how investment works is probably the biggest learning curve if you're going to build a successful retention program.
Yeah. So you mentioned ad dollars and return on ad spend. So I want to touch base really quickly, if you want, on the online customer acquisition and retention channels are working for you on the DTC side first. So what's working for you guys, if you want to say, of course.
Yeah. So we're playing with all the same tools as everyone else. What I'll say is that on the meta side, the more successful we are with organic content, the better our ads perform and the lower our CPAs are. So if your company's not prioritizing an intentional organic social strategy, then your paid is likely suffering immensely because of it. You have to have a complete approach to this. This is not just a pay to, it's not 2014 anymore. 2014 to 2016, if you didn't make money using Facebook ads, you shouldn't be in marketing. It was a money printing machine at that point. And it's just not there anymore. And I still think some brands are married to that idea, even though it's 2024, right? It's 10 years later and they're still thinking in those terms. You have to have a complete packaged, buttoned up social strategy. That doesn't mean it can't shift and change. I've taken podiums from, hey, we need to post 3 times a day for the next 3 months, mandatory. And they have to be good posts. Here's the sprint of content that we need. And this is when you need to start doing it. And we're going to measure down to we're only posting 3 times a week. That's it. And now we've found like a good cadence, but social engagement is certainly the strongest metric to look at to make sure that your ads are going to be successful, not necessarily following, right? Like we only have 70,000, 75,000 followers or something like that on Podium, nothing crazy, but our engagement is very strong. We don't lose followers very easily at all. And so now as we ramp up content, I expect that our CPAs, in a good stride for us, we're seeing CPAs of $8 to $14 on some premier products in supplement space. That's pretty significant. A lot of brands are not seeing CPAs that low, especially in our industry. When times are hard, we also battle the $40 acquisitions, right? Like we deal with that too. There's nothing too special there except for just knowing your limits, knowing your daily spend rate, and having good creative and making sure it's succinct with your whole brand. Amazon is one that I feel is a little bit more controllable and predictable. It's the best of both worlds, right? You're bidding on keywords like Google and also imagery and display like you would on Meta. So in my opinion, if you're doing well on Amazon, it will spill over to D2C. No one wants to admit that if they lead D2C, but it will. If you do well on D2C, it will spill into Amazon, but on certain months, it's going to look like D2C is just down for no reason. So you want to just make sure that like by each channel, you're spending in a way that you understand. Remember, it's not just the lap, it's the whole race, that you understand what's going on omni-channel. So digitally speaking, we're not doing anything special. I will say is like a freebie direct mail is over indexing for us, like really well. Like direct mail campaigns are crushing. We use Postpilot for that, use them. And then for our email marketing, I highly recommend SendLane. Like they are by far like the winner versus Klaviyo. I've used a lot of different email platforms. Having synchronized all-in-one like tent pole data with SMS and email is a game changer for flows. So I think like simple tech stack, cohesive social strategies, your CPAs will be good.
And then how important it is for you, the long form video game. I noticed that you have a YouTube channel with a little bit over 3K subscribers,
Mm-hmm.
that you have done some episodes and you do like some long form videos. So how important is that to you?
Everything on purpose, right? So Instagram, I, that's where we live. TikTok isn't important for sure. YouTube isn't important. Yeah. Pinterest, Twitter. Yeah. You only have so many resources. So I would rather do one thing so well that the other ones don't necessarily matter. And I still think Instagram is the stickiest app that there is. I think TikTok you have like some intense scrolling sessions, but it's not like I check it real quick. Instagram, you can check in, check out. It's a little bit more accepted. So we double down on Instagram, triple down on Instagram, quadruple down on Instagram. When we upload long format videos to YouTube, everything on purpose. So for instance, we have an episode where we tease a stroopwafel cookie as one of the things. We filmed that 18 months ago. In 20 8 days, we will be releasing that cookie. We haven't talked about it in months. We haven't teased it in months, but we will be coming back to that video and talking about it. And so when I shoot long form content, the cost is a little higher, the production time's a little longer. I really want to make sure that whatever we use can be as evergreen as possible. It is something that we will be getting more into in the next 6 months. YouTube will become our next social pillar that we tackle really well, but we start all of our strategy from an Instagram first mindset.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, oh, man, I have a lot of questions for you, but I know we are almost, the time is almost up. But one last question for you, probably if you briefly want to talk about retail. Why going to retail? When do you know is the right time for a brand
Mm.
to start doing retail? And what things you wish that you knew before entering into retail?
Yeah. So the biggest thing with retail is you need to act like you only got one shot, right? M&M, mom spaghetti, one chance. You only have one real chance. Now, is that always true? Like, not necessarily, but you need to act like that. It's a big deal to get on someone's planogram and get the trust of buyers and get people. It's a lot of work. A lot of hands have to touch your product to make that happen. Respect that. I will say there's a lot of myths around the cost of retail too. Everyone's talking, oh, it costs so much. It costs most of the time for sophisticated retailers like a Target, the cost is coming out of your actual invoices in the form of chargebacks. Most of the marketing that you're going to do with Target is going to be billed back through chargebacks. So yeah, it does cost, but if you're good with cash flow management and you have the gross margins to support retail correctly, it's not as scary as people make it out to be. It's really not. For Podium though, again, the strategy was have the initial megaphone with the influencers that we had with good reach, get everyone excited about GNC, only talk about GNC, have some exclusivity. So start with a single store or chain, really own that store and chain, build that relationship, build a consumer base, get comfortable there, know your velocities, launch with some purpose. After a while, after you really started to understand what that means for operations and purchase orders and what real cash flow looks like, then you can kind of go into a little bit more mass distribution because you'll have a baseline understanding of how your product does and what SKUs will trend, et cetera. But I will say, don't be as scared of retail as people want to make you feel. It's not really the big bad wolf that you think it is. You just got to treat it seriously.
Amazing. So this has been amazing. I wanted to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. I had a blast. But before we go, I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you wanted to mention that I didn't ask you, that you think that is important for the audience to know.
Well, Podium's how I pay my mortgage, but all my life savings is going into this brand right here. It's called Buddy's Gum. I will be launching that. I'm gonna just say soon. It's been a whole journey in and of itself. Chewing gum is not easy to produce. There's very limited co-manufacturers, and it's a very locked up market with three big players. Hi Mondelez, thanks for making my life hard. So it's a tough one to get into, but I'm stubborn. I'm very stubborn and very competitive, and I think I've found some solutions to get us to market, hopefully in Q3. So it's coming soon. Follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. If you follow me on Instagram, you're going to get nothing but memes and sarcasm. You follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get still sarcasm and memes, but also some helpful stuff too.
Amazing. And then maybe in the future, we can do an episode on that brand as well. And you can
Yeah,
tell us
yeah, that'd be cool.
amazing.
Sounds good.
So again, I had the pleasure, Dylan. I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you and Podium Nutrition.
Yeah, so like I said, me, LinkedIn, that's the best place. Jillian Jones, if you look at my username, or just Dylan Jones, you'll find me. And then Podium, we're available nationwide at Target, the Vitamin Shop, GNC, Dick's Sporting Goods, Academy, and a couple grocery here and there. But yeah, we're nationwide or on 321podium.com.
Amazing. Everything Dylan said will be available in the show notes on the DTCinsider.com. If you find the episode there, unless you are already there right now, you will see everything that he mentioned. Dylan, again, it was a pleasure. Thank you for being here on the show.
Thanks, Brian.